Hello and welcome again to another installation of Edinburgh Player Wellbeing's podcast. Today we're talking about inspirations and I'm joined by the amazing and very wonderful Sabrina Tickle. How are you doing, Sabrina?
Thank you. That's quite an introduction. I'm good, thank you.
That's a good introduction, eh? I'm renowned for my introductions.
Every time I walk into a room, that's how I want it to be greeted.
Like the explosions and
fanfare, yeah.
So it's been, I think, we're in June now, the middle of June.
Yeah.
And the last spoke, I can't exactly remember, but it must have been February, March kind of time.
Yeah, it was
something like that.
Yeah, it was quite a while ago now.
So how's life for you since then, before we go to the inspirational thing? How's things?
Good.
Staying safe?
All good, yes. Staying safe, enjoying a little bit of freedom again.
It's been nice to kind of re-engage with people again, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and see people in real life, it's the best.
Aye. It's interesting because we see folk, but we like to give cuddles, some folk like, because I like to give cuddles, and actually seeing people and giving a cuddle, or even just engaging with people again in the same room, the same airspace, is phenomenal. And by working with people who you and I would work with, it's affected them greatly, kind of thing, because they're like, we're back in the same room. They don't feel as isolated anymore, So yeah, it's a positive. But fingers crossed, everybody, to keep safe. And
I know.
if your vaccination's due, go and get. Have you had your ones yet?
I have been double vaccinated. I'm very happy. I've managed to, through work, I got vaccinated a bit earlier, so that was very positive.
And were you okay after you had the Jags in AV?
Oh, I was so ill after the first one, and I made the mistake of, I think I woke up at 4 a.m. with a fever, and I thought, I'll go on Twitter, that'll help. And it didn't.
No.
So, by the time 7 o'clock came, I thought I was dying for sure. But it passed by the afternoon, and I was fine the second time round. So
I think paracetamol sales have gone up massively in the last few months. I had mine about 3-4 weeks ago. Got home a couple of hours later, I was fine. Then a few hours after that, I was like, I feel a bit kind of weird. And I just had the laptop, lay on the bed, and just did. And it is what it is. It is what it is. But there's always side effects with things, because it's But I'm hoping that things are going to get not normal, because I don't know what normal is these days, but the new normal, whatever it's going to be. But however, we digress. So in this series, we're talking about inspirations, and I was talking to someone you and I both know very well, Danielle, before the episode before this. And
it was good.
Thanks very much. Well, she's very good. She does try. She's very good. And also within the content of that podcast, we're chatting about, so who came up with this idea of inspirations? I said, well, funnily enough, it was actually no me. It was Miss Sabrina Tickle, because in the last series of podcasts, she said, we were having a conversation and we're talking about what could the next one be. It could be inspirations. So no pressure today, Sabrina. I'm all kidding. No, I think it's
a brilliant idea, though.
I know. Trademark that one, Hen. Trademark that one. No, I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm so glad you gave me it. Because I think it's important we've been stuck in a weird place for the last, I'm rubbish at maths, 14, 15 months. And we've missed our family members, we've missed our friends, we've missed our community work colleagues and people who we work with as well in the same airspace. And so when you said about inspirations, it got me thinking, well, we're missing our family and missing all these people, but I wonder, are any of these people, or it could be a famous person or someone who's well known in the media, who inspires you? I was always inspired by, for example, Freddie Mercury for Queen, because of what he stood up to be and his message to the world and of music kind of thing, So, and then I thought, who inspires me for work? So I kind of broke it into two sections, I suppose: home and personal, and work. And often it's actually the same person, or never the two shall meet, if that makes sense. So, have you thought, since it was your idea, have you thought who inspired you, kind of in life, school, work, just to kind of get to where you are just now?
Yeah. Well, because I did have such a brilliant idea, I've obviously put a lot of thought into this. And I found it kind of really quite challenging, actually, because I think when initially you think about inspirations, you think like really big and kind of who's kind of like changed the world, who's revolutionized how we do things, and you kind of your brain automatically goes that way. And there's obviously loads of significant kind of people through history who's inspired me that way. But I also thought, well, like how meaningful is that? To me personally, like what's closer to home. And I had quite a challenging kind of childhood, or quite a challenging upbringing, and actually for most of it there wasn't a lot of inspiration. It was a kind of survival situation. You just kind of have to get through. But one of the things that my mum done was just like she always made me believe that no matter like how tough things were, and they were really hard at times, that I wouldn't be bound by this.
Right.
This wasn't going to be my life, and actually I could achieve anything that I wanted to. And I think she must have managed to instill that in me from a very young age, because I always believed it. I've always had high aspirations
Yeah.
from being like a kid, and it's quite, when you think back and you think of the situations that I was maybe living in, the time where you kind of the extreme poverty and kind
Yeah.
of violence and all this kind of stuff. And you think, I wanted to be a lawyer. Like, and I
Right.
thought I had a full belief that I would be a lawyer at that time. So she has always managed to give me that, inspire me to have that aspiration.
Aye, yeah.
And it's like something that was just so important to her, because it was something that she didn't have.
Right.
She just kind of worked really hard to make sure that I had that.
Mhm.
And it's made a massive difference. I think it gave me that little bit of fight to kind of change things and
Yeah.
do things differently from what she knew and kind of her family before her and stuff.
Yeah. And you're right, experiences do shape us, don't they?
Mm,
Shape us to be perhaps stronger, more determined, more of a grit to get things done. And as you say, it's a great example about your mum, how she was trying to provide you what she didn't have when she was
mm,
younger. And I think that's almost like at the top of the parenting book, isn't it? That's
yeah.
chapter one. That's the introduction of the book of parenting. There isn't one out there. Well, there probably is, but well, in fact, there is. But yeah, that's like I guess that's chapter one, and probably the most important on the top shelf there. That
Definitely.
you want the best for your child, for your siblings, and that's
Yeah.
that's that's all you can do. I'm wondering, what would you, if you could go back in time and stand beside that Sabrina at school, primary seven, whatever, what do you think you would say to her?
Oh, that's a big question, isn't it? Probably to actually not pretend everything was okay.
Right,
I think it's taken quite a few years for me to realise the extent of what my life was then.
right,
And actually, you kind of have that head down, get on with things, and kind of so you just internalize everything. And
yeah,
actually, I wish that I had maybe spoken to people. I wish that I had been kind of not just pretended that everything was all right all the time, because I think not many people probably really knew me
right,
when I think about that time in my life. I had friends and things like that, but there was always this kind of barrier, this pretense of kind
right,
of everything's okay when actually it really wasn't.
yeah, yeah,
And I think probably it wouldn't have had such a big impact for years and years and years if I
mhm,
had maybe just spoke to a teacher, or something
yeah.
like that.
But again, and the argument, the other side of that is that we don't have a crystal ball. We can't
No,
go back in
no.
time and do that. It'd be great if we could. I'd love to stand beside a younger David and say to him that, it's going to be okay. The
Mm,
bullying at school will stop soon. This, that,
yeah.
another will, but I think, I mean, again, it's tough. And the reason I asked that is because it's something that the people that we work with probably try and reflect on that as much to the best of their ability. if they've got the skills to do that. And if they don't have the skills, it's people like ourselves who would talk them through this kind of this skill set for them to talk about that and to say, you know what, you might have had a really bad time in your childhood or whatever, but you know, you're still here, you're a survivor, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to have a crystal ball and go back and say, you know, I would love just to, because I'm nosy, stand on my old playground.
I am so nosy as well. I'd love to, yeah.
Stand on my old playground, and nobody can see me, obviously. It's like Santa Muppets Christmas Carol, where nobody can actually see it in an own weird way. And just watch myself going back and forth to play with my pals. And I used to have a tree, no, my own tree. Well, that was my tree in my primary school. And I called it my rocket ship, because every playtime I'd go to my rocket ship. I'd go beep, 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 and I'd go on a journey by myself. And that would be me removing myself, kind of, for that playtime or lunchtime, once I've had my lunch, to then I'd use your imagination and just, because I was never good at football.
Yeah.
I could kick it, kind of. But, you know, I think it's important to kind of have that wee kind of escapism kind of thing, you know. So that was like at work. Sorry, that was like at home that you're talking about in your kind of personal life when you were but a young child. A younger Sabrina, I'd like to call, you know. What about latterly in life, as you're getting older and into your work, into your career, into your own personal development? Is there anybody that you've thought, I want to be like you, or I strive to be like you?
Yeah, I think I went the complete opposite way when I kind of started getting into work. Once I started getting into kind of work and uni, I found that I was just inspired by everyone and wanted to be like, so when I first went to college, because I never got the qualifications I needed for uni at school, I went back into a mature learning course, and I had to do, one of the things that I had to do to kind of pass the course was a presentation in front of the whole class. And back then, it's hard to imagine that I'm doing this now, because back then I nearly failed the whole course because of presentations. I was like a shaken wreck. And my teacher at the time, she was just amazing, and she actually properly taught me in a way that actually got me through college, and then got me through uni, and subsequently got me sitting here. Because I would never have done this like 10 years ago. It just wouldn't have happened. So, and just her teaching and kind of encouragement and things like that literally probably changed everything, because I wouldn't have been able to do uni if I couldn't have done the presentations and all that kind of stuff. And then you can't really do your job, even though it's not, we're not doing presentations every day, but sometimes you've got to do training. Sometimes you've got to, like, I sometimes get a wee bit nervous when I'm doing the board meetings and I'm kind of hosting the board meetings for the Y project. And I'm like, oh, because it's so personal and you love it so much as well. You want it to go well. But all of these kind of things, I just wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't had her. Change my life, really.
Inspiration.
That was traumatic, but
was that your light bulb moment, I would call it, Sabrina.
And it was like
that person.
It was like a whole kind of awakening, if you want to call it that, in my whole life, because that was the first thing that, going to college, it was the first thing I ever really done for myself. I had like lecturers. I had a philosophy lecturer who was just like, it was like from a different world, and had so much knowledge. I just like really wanted to be that clever. And the same with my politics lecturer. It's the first time you really kind of got tuned into that type of stuff. And so you kind of went from maybe not really having much interest in that type of thing to being kind of sitting in the middle of the road in protests and stuff like that, because it was like a light bulb, like you said. I was just wanted to be like all these really smart, amazing people, and some of my friends in college were like just really knowledgeable about politics and things like that, and I just loved it. I just loved taking it all in and how smart they all were, and I just wanted to be like that.
And isn't it amazing that you went from someone like 5 years before that, you probably thought you weren't going to be doing that, or 10 years before that, whatever.
Yeah.
To then being at that point, and you're fully immersed in something because you found your passion, what you want to do. I so often speak about in these podcasts, you get the career advisor at school when you're 14, 15, what do you want to do when you're older? No idea. Still don't no idea at that point. Some people do, and that's great. But a lot of people don't. So, and you often, we talk about, we've all got our own path and we have to go through X, Y, Z for certain hurdles or a different path to go down and actually figure out, you know what, this is what I want to do. And it's amazing hearing not just about the person who inspired you for to go to further education, but the kind of journey that you went on as well, you know, and to go to put completely fully immersed in that journey, which then develops you to the person that you are now. I mean, you probably had those skills anyway, but you know, you're talking about talking out and doing presentations, which is often horrendous. But then, as you say, you're doing presentations to boards now on, well, back in the days when we could do it face to face, but online. Often it's harder online, isn't it? Because
you know, go by reactions and stuff. Do you know,
body language, reaction?
Yeah. Like when I mentioned when we were chatting briefly before, I'd done a webinar through my kind of other job, and you're hosting and you might say something funny. Well, what I think is really funny, but then there's just nothing. There's just silence, and you're like, oh, this is fun.
I know. Talking about funny, I learned a joke the other day.
Okay.
So there's two Irish folk, and the guy's trying to put a flagpole up. No, he's got a flagpole up, but he wants to measure, see how long it is. See, you know, try to get a measure tape. You can't get a measuring tape on it. So his pal says, "Why don't you just put it on the ground and measure it for them?" And he says, "No, I want the height, no the length." That was brilliant. I played it really badly. I delivered it really badly. I seen it the other day, and it came out perfectly. It fluid, just like water. It was like fluid. It was perfect. I thought it was a brilliant joke, though. So that's the kind of thing. Often, I don't know. When I was younger, I used to be very, 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 very quiet, like scarily quiet. And like yourself, you were chatting about being up, talking in front of folk, giving presentations and whatnot. And you used to get did you ever get some really weird advice, like picture your audience with no clothes on or something like that, or an empty room or something? What advice were you given? Can you remember?
I think for this situation in particular, it was actually like quite relevant to the situation, because it was like everyone here actually wants you to do this, you know, because it was a checkbox thing, and there was no kind of, if I didn't do it, it was only me that was going to fail the course, you know. But like, because people actually wanted me, like there was all that encouragement in the room, and it was like, you know, it was basically, even if you're terrible, you know, if you just stand up and speak, we'll pass you. So it was like the expectation of how good it had to be, I think, was removed, and that really helped. That was obviously specific to that situation.
Aye.
I think the best advice is really the thing that I'm the worst at, which is prepare.
Right.
Because I'm a last minute kind of panic type person. And I don't think that's always the best when you're doing public speaking and things like that. So,
because it's not just the public speaking, whether you're doing it in the same room as each other or you're doing it online or whatnot. It's you know what you're going to say, and you know that the people who are there to speak hear you, and they've got the vested interest. They know, they're really keen to hear what you're saying, and maybe have a two-way dialogue later on or something. But there's also, well, for me anyway, is the technology side of things. So you know what you're going to say. You've probably maybe not got it word for word perfect, but you know 99.9% what you're going to say. But then you think, is this going to work if I press this button? Is that going to put me off my flow? And I've seen that many times. It's happened to me before. I remember doing a thing at the SECC for the early years collaborative. I did a speech, played a video. While I was off, I went and got a guitar strapped to me. I thought it was out of tune, because why would you think it was out of tune? And I completely detuned it. And I went on in front of 4,000 folk, which is including the First Minister and John Swinney and all these other people. And I did a mass wheels on the bus, and we can't should drive the bus now, but mass we will rock you. And the whole thing, the guitar was completely out of tune, And I'm thinking, that was something that I was overthinking. I was overthinking that, thinking it's probably going to be out of tune, or something's going to happen. But by me playing about with it and not actually hearing it properly, it was completely out of tune. And you thought, you know what? It doesn't matter. So my point is that even if the power goes down and you're back to a bit of paper, or nothing, you've no bit of paper, it's just you and your voice. Often I think that could relax people.
Yeah.
Rather than death by PowerPoint or anything like that. We just talk about death by PowerPoint. I was like, it's
a challenge, isn't it?
It is. I've just realised as well, I must have burnt. It's been quite sunny in Great Britain. I must have burnt my head yesterday in the sun because I did put factor 50 or whatever it is on, but gee whiz. Because you've got different, because you're in England now. So you've got different sun.
Yes, I am. Different sun, yeah.
So have you been putting old factor doodah on?
I put it on my face mainly because I don't want to like be cold.
Have you put
obviously
hairlines as well, apparently, because you've got a hairline there. Always make sure.
I don't put it there actually.
You didn't want to burn your head.
No, that's a very good point.
Take it from someone who knows.
It's been sunny, but I have actually been working, so you're not really seeing that much.
Yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately.
So, who do you want? Who are you trying to inspire? You know, who because you're now, you know, you're like me, married, kids, and so you're in that position as mum now, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, so who do you want to inspire?
That'll be my daughter. Would obviously be like the kind of first person on my list and the most important, really. And you kind of, it's a hard balance when you become a parent, because I think when I was growing up, like my family didn't really work and things like that. So working has always been something that's really important to me, and being able to provide and being able to know that I'll be okay, no matter kind of what situation comes along, that's really important to me. But also, if you're going to be doing that, it has to be, for me, obviously everyone's different and people make their own decisions that's right for them, but for me it has to be something that's worthwhile. If I'm going to be missing parts of my daughter's life, which is inevitably what happens when they're young and you're working, it has to be for something good. It has to be for something that I love. It has to be for something that I believe in, and I'm fortunate to be in that position. So, but also to just have that balance right. And I think probably for the first few years, that's where you end up just burnt out, because you're trying to do all, you're trying to be what's you imagine as like the perfect mum, and being organized and cooking and cleaning and all these things that are probably for the 40s or something, really. It's not and work and run a charity and all these things, and that's just not realistic. Something's got to give. But I think I was so focused on, I have to be able to do both. I have to be this good working role model, but I also have to not let the other stuff slip. And then I think you realise that actually, well, you're not on your own, and some of the other stuff doesn't really matter, and what's really important is just time. And actually, I have kind of calmed down a little bit. I've made a promise to myself that I'm not going to take on any more commitments until I'm settled, because I'm very excitable. I get caught up in things all the time, especially if it's kind of around youth work and work that I really care about. I'm like, oh my God, I'll do that. I'll join 40 boards. And so I have to talk myself out of things a lot. And that's the kind of commitment that I've made to myself.
Yeah, I think that's really important as well. You see, you've said you're going to inspire it for your wee one, and you've also reconnected with ourselves as well, saying that it's time to check in here. How can I be any good or useful to my children or my husband or my wife or whatever when you're burnt out yourself?
Yeah,
And we're
exactly.
always coming back to the well-being side of things. We had a chat, didn't we, just before we hit record earlier on, that you and I were as bad as each other, that, you know, we must ensure, especially in our line of work, our own personal well-being. So if anything that's came out of this podcast, many things have came out of this podcast, that those who are listening inspire to remember your own well-being and to look after, folks say, number one, to look after yourself, because if you're not looking after yourself, you won't be able to look after anybody else as good as up to your ability, you know. Any inspirational thoughts before we depart each other, Sabrina?
Inspirational thoughts. I assume I'm not allowed to talk about the football and how inspired I am.
You can talk about the football because
no, I'm just
why not?
I'm so excited. Like, I know football's not your favorite thing, but I'm about like a day away from moving back home just so, just so I can watch the football in Scotland.
Well,
yeah,
the Scotland games today, it's 14th of June. So the Scotland games, I think 2 o'clock, the kickoff or 3 o'clock or something like that.
2 o'clock.
So have you heard about the schools up here want to also show the kids the football?
Yeah.
Now, the school at my kids at the local school right here, there's been no answer to that as yet. But it might just be it accidentally comes on the board, whatever it's called now, the board, and it comes on for the last 45 minutes of school, and the kids can choose to watch it or they don't choose to watch it. But you know, you're right. I'm not a big fan of football at all, but I have been watching I always watch the tournaments, so like the Euros or the World Cups or whatever.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about inspirations, actually. A lot of people will use, as I spoke about inspirations in the music industry, a lot of people will use inspirations in the sporting world as well, in the woodworking world, in the plumbing world, and all these different, places, whatever you want to call it. But a lot's happened over the weekend in football.
Yeah.
And in particular, one of the football players kind of dying on the pitch. And I say that loosely and lightly, but it's not loose or lightly at all. And just watching the comments coming in on the news all weekend and the sports channels and all that kind of thing. We talk about inspirations in this today, and I think it's so inspiring seeing people coming together, watching the chap's teammates, giving him some privacy and dignity, as well as the doctors and the medics and doing what they need to do to bring him back, and thankfully touch with his back and sitting up in bed apparently and doing okay. But I thought that was actually really, really inspiring, because I was sitting with my son who's 7, and obviously the cameras went off and him and I just went and did something else because it wasn't nice to see. But the camaraderie of a team and working together, I think, is really inspirational.
Yeah. And it was just so instinctual to them. Do you know, like that is the bond that they have, that they make, and they just knew that they had to make sure he was okay and kind of preserve his dignity.
And if you looked at everybody around that stadium, where the fans of the opposing team as well, everybody who was in that stadium was just, some of them were, some people were praying for the guy. And again, so inspiring. I think if the whole world was around the guy at that point, the arms around him in a kind of image like that. So I think that's been one of the biggest inspiring things that's happened in the last few days in the world. And I say, thank goodness he's hopefully on the mend. They brought him back, which is great. So yeah, I'm interested to see that young people look up to that guy, and maybe talking about health at some point or whatever, you know. It certainly gave us some food for thought to talk about and have conversations about, and just bring people together, you know, for the common goal, because we've all been separated and isolated for the last 14, 15 months, and people have been isolated for longer. So again, bring it all back together again, that is quite inspiring, bringing people back together as a team, as a group, as a collective, you know.
I think that's why it feels like obviously it feels massive because Scotland haven't been in a tournament for so long.
Yeah.
It also just feels massive because of the last 18 months. Like there's something really big and exciting, and it's allowed to happen, and we're allowed to celebrate, and we're allowed to celebrate together. That's obviously me being very optimistic that we're going to be celebrating, but
you know, I think, Sabrina, one of the, again, I talk about the positives. One of the positives that's came out of everything that's happened the last year and a half or so is, as you say, the excitement of coming back together. Not 60,000 folk in a stadium, but X amount of people in a stadium, or even just watching it on the telly. It's like, come on, even just seeing people in the stadium there, or people together on, it's awe-inspiring.
Yeah,
you know, the fans together, they're all crying together, clapping together, singing together, you know. And I'm really excited about watching our national team this afternoon. And you know, if whoever wins or whoever loses, it doesn't matter. I think as long as everybody's just happy to be together just now. Because it was Euro 2020 and it's now 2021, isn't it?
I know, and just enjoy the experience.
Exactly. Sabrina, as always, it's an honour, it's a pleasure, never a chore. I like to kind of and do you have a busy day planned ahead afterwards?
I've got to tie as much work up as I can before the football, so that's my kind of a mad productive couple of
2
hours.
or 3 hours to go for it. Aye.
Yeah.
Thinking. Sabrina, thank you so much. It's lovely to see your face again.
You too. Thank you very much.
And we'll speak to you very, very soon.
I'll speak to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.